Dover entity showed up in my dash camera at 2:37 a.m., and the rule was simple: keep driving. My alternator quote expired at noon, so this run had to clear tonight, even if the tires sang on every seam and my hands kept slipping on the wheel from sweat. A tiny red light on the camera mount blinked in the wrong rhythm, like it was counting for someone else, and I remember thinking, stupidly, that the car could not afford another warning. The safest rule was bait. The handheld scanner on my passenger seat chimed and flashed a pop-up from after-hours dispatch, the kind that only shows up when the day team wants their conscience clean. The message looked official in the way a cheap printout looks official, with washed-out toner and a crooked margin, and the subject line read, "Route Safety Reminder, revision tag E7 tucked in the corner like an afterthought." He gave one instruction in bold quoted text: keep driving. A second line followed, fainter, like the printer ran out of ink halfway through a warning: do not stop for movement. The scanner made its happy little confirmation beep anyway, and I tapped the screen twice out of habit, the way I always do when I want a machine to admit it heard me. County highway stretched black ahead, and the shoulder to my right held only grass and a guardrail, and the pale suggestion of snow left in the ditches from earlier in the week. A trucker once told me, night roads are honest because nothing hides, but night roads lie too, because a headlight beam can turn a deer into a person if the brain wants company badly enough. My job title said courier, but the work was mostly faith. Pick up a cooler, scan a barcode, drive the same routes so the system never flags a deviation. The cooler sat behind me, strapped in with a seatbelt, because the company told everyone it was safer, and because I liked the click of the latch as proof that at least one thing had been secured. An orange inspection sticker on the dash camera mount peeled at one corner and showed E7 in block letters, the same mark as the revision tag. And I told myself it was a coincidence because I needed coincidences more than I needed new rules. Headlights caught something at the edge of the beam. Not an animal, not a mailbox, not a tree. The shape held still on the shoulder, tall and thin, angled toward the road like it was listening. My scanner chimed again, a softer tone, like it was trying not to startle me, and my mouth went dry, because the system never pings twice, unless somebody is watching. The pop-up had not changed, but the quoted line had like a bad subtitle: keep driving. A second line appeared under it, crisp this time: if you see it, do not look back. No one had said the word out loud, and the thing on the shoulder did not wave, but my pulse, I jumped anyway because my dash camera light blinked once, twice, then held steady like it had decided. A voice crackled through the car radio, low and flattened by compression, and the dispatcher said, "Do not stop." That should have been comforting, because the dispatcher did not call drivers unless a wreck shut down a road or a clinic changed its hours. But the voice hit wrong, one syllable bent, the way an automated menu pronounces a human name. The shoulder shape moved, not forward, not backward, just a tilt at the neck that made my stomach tighten because it felt like recognition. Headlights swept farther down the road and caught another vehicle. Hazards blinking in slow amber pulses, parked half on the gravel, half on the asphalt, like whoever pulled over didn't trust the shoulder. A courier van. Same company color, no logo I could read its speed, but I knew the silhouette and I knew what it meant, because we ran these routes, like tracks in a rut. A trap does not need teeth if it can make a decent person stop. The rule said keep driving, but my eyes found the van door cracked open and a human shape slumped sideways in the driver's seat, and I heard my own brain say, "Not my problem," then hated myself for hearing it. The scanner chirped again, the sound thin and eager, and the pop-up added a new line that made my throat go tight. If you stop, stay in the vehicle. I did not stop. I slowed, which is a lie people tell themselves when they want to feel obedient while doing the opposite, and my foot hovered over the brake anyway as the headlights threw enough light to show a hand against the glass. An adult hand, palm flat, fingers spread, like somebody trying to signal without moving too much. My stress reflex kicked in. The one thing my old mechanic taught me that actually stuck. Tap the brake twice before a full stop, so the lights warn the world and the pads wake up. Those brake taps felt like knocking on a door. The courier van hazard lights blinked, then froze on solid amber, and the dash camera light on my windshield held steady again, brighter now, almost proud. A low thump landed on my roof. Metal flexed and settled, and the sound traveled down the windshield into my teeth like a vibration, and my hands clenched the wheel hard enough to hurt, because the body understands weight before the mind can name it. My foot stamped the gas. The engine rose, the car surged, and the thump slid toward the hood with a scraping that did not match rubber on paint or snow on metal. In my dash camera screen, a black shape crossed the frame, too close, like a person walking right up to the lens, except no person could reach that high without standing on the hood. Radio crackled again and the dispatcher repeated, "Do not stop." The voice repeated it twice, then a third time in a whisper that sounded almost like mine. My catchphrase slipped out before I could stop it, a stupid little grounding trick. Not my favorite. That phrase usually meant a flat tire or a delayed pickup, but my mouth used it for anything that made my hands shake, and hearing it in this moment made me feel small. The courier van in the mirror fell back fast, and the shoulder shape was gone. But something stayed with me, a weight forward on the hood that made the suspension dip with every bump. I forced my eyes forward because the rule had changed and because looking at the hood through the windshield meant acknowledging something that should not exist there. A faint dragging noise came in pulses, 2 seconds on, 1 second off, like fingers testing grip. The scanner chimed and the pop-up went blank. A second later, it displayed a single quoted line, stark against the white screen. "Do not unlock your doors." That should have been obvious, but rules never exist for obvious things, not the ones that show up at 2:37 a.m. on a route that pays just enough to keep a car alive. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Not a call, just a vibration, and the screen stayed dark because I had it in auto power saver mode to stretch battery, which felt suddenly pathetic. A patch of road ahead reflected my headlights in a thin sheen, and the reflection showed my hood. It also showed something crouched on it. Not a full body, not a face, just a bend of limbs in the wrong places. Too many joints. A shape folded low, like it knew how wind works. My stomach dropped, and my brain reached for denial the way it reaches for a seatbelt. Maybe a tarp. Maybe a deer. Maybe the courier van threw debris. The reflection shifted, and the shape shifted with it, matching the car perfectly like it was attached. A line of text pulsed on the scanner again, and the subject line flashed different. Not route safety reminder now, but vehicle incident guidance. Still routed through after-hours dispatch, still tagged E7. The quoted instruction beneath it read, "If it is on the hood, keep speed." A second line followed. "Do not flash brights." My finger twitched toward the high beams anyway, the old instinct to see better when frightened, and I pulled my hand back like the lever was hot because rules are only hard when they fight instinct. The radio gave a short burst of static, then a click. Then my own voice came through, delayed by half a second, saying, "Do not stop." Panic is not always loud. Sometimes panic is realizing a system knows your voice well enough to counterfeit it. The courier van had a driver, an adult co-worker, somebody who would have been on the same schedule board as me earlier that night. The human part of me kept grabbing that fact like a handle, because if the story stayed about a co-worker stranded on a shoulder, then the story could end with a tow truck. My next breath came shallow, and the thought that followed it was ugly and practical. If I did not scan the delivery at the next clinic, the system would dock me, and the alternator quote would expire, and the car would die, and I would not have a route anymore. That selfish thought hit like a slap. I reached down and hit the radio button, not to transmit, just to cut volume, and the cabin fell into a sudden silence so complete my ears rang. Engine noise stayed, tire noise stayed, but the tiny layers that make a car feel alive vanished. Even the faint hiss of air through vents, and the absence forced the mind to fill the gap. The dragging on the hood stopped too. Silence does not happen on a highway without a reason. My fingers hovered over the door lock switch, wanting confirmation, and I stopped myself because touching a lock felt like a promise I could not afford to break. The dash camera screen glowed with the live feed, and the corner timestamp on it refused to advance. Seconds stayed frozen while the road moved. The camera was recording a loop. I tapped the screen to bring up playback, because competence looks like action, even when action is the worst idea, and because I needed proof for the company if this turned into a termination meeting. Playback showed the last 12 seconds. The road, the shoulder, my hood at the bottom of frame, a shape crouched low like the reflection. Then, on the 9th second, the shape lifted its head, and the lens caught a pale, smooth surface that could have been skin if skin belonged on a geometry like that. The clip ended. It started again on the second loop. The pale surface turned toward the passenger side, and a dark line opened across it like a mouth without lips. On the third loop, the pale surface faced the camera and held still, and the dash camera light on my windshield blinked once, like a wink. My thumb shook, and the video continued anyway, because the device did not need permission to replay. The radio button clicked under my finger, unpressed, and the dispatcher said, "Calm now, pull over at the next light." That instruction did not match the earlier memo. That instruction sounded like help. That instruction sounded safe. It also sounded like a test. The scanner added a quoted line under Vehicle Incident Guidance, crisp black letters that made my skin crawl. If you are instructed to pull over, comply. My mouth formed a laugh that never became sound. Authority feels like gravity at night, especially when a dashboard screen tells a tired worker that compliance is the only path. The shape on my hood shifted and the car dipped, and the windshield wipers bumped once even though I had not touched them, as if the car itself wanted to clear a view. The courier van on the shoulder disappeared behind me, but my eyes kept seeing the hand against the glass, because guilt has its own kind of persistence. My voice cracked when I spoke into the dead air of the cabin, not for anyone else, just to keep myself human. Not my favorite. The phrase tasted stupid, and it helped anyway. Light appeared ahead, not street lights, just a glow from a small rest stop that the county kept open for truckers and tired locals. A vending machine, a bathroom, a few parking spots, no staff. The kind of place that feels safe only because it is familiar. The scanner chimed and displayed another quoted line, and the print on the screen looked thinner, like the font which changed mid-sentence. If you must stop, stop where cameras see. That rule had a loophole baked into it, and loopholes always cost. Fuel would burn. Time would slip. The alternator quote would not care. My stress reflex pushed the brake twice again, slow this time, and the car rolled into the rest stop lot under the harsh white glow of overhead lamps. The shape on my hood flattened, almost hugging the metal, and the dragging noise resumed, softer, like it was adjusting. A pickup truck sat empty near the bathroom, and the vending machine hummed with the steady patience of cheap refrigeration. I pulled into a spot and kept my foot on the brake, engine running, because stopping felt like inviting. The scanner popped a warning tone, not the normal beep. A choked half sound and a line of text appeared that made my stomach twist. Do not turn off the engine. My hand hovered near the ignition anyway. Turning off the engine would mean silence again, and silence had already acted like a signal. The dash camera light blinked twice, then held steady, and the timestamp still refused to advance. Door locks stayed engaged. My palm pressed against the steering wheel leather, and it felt cold, like the car had been sitting in shade all day, even though the heater had been running for an hour. A figure moved at the edge of the lot. Not the shoulder shape from the highway, not the thing on my hood, but a human silhouette near the bathroom door, shoulders hunched, one arm held close like it hurt. The courier van driver, adult, alive, stumbling. And my guilt shifted into something sharper, because leaving them on the shoulder would not just be cruel, it would be dangerous. The rule said, stay in the vehicle. My scanner still displayed that line like a dare. The pro-social reason arrived anyway, heavy and undeniable, and I made a choice that cost me the illusion of obedience. Window cracked down 2 inches. Cold air slid in and brought a smell of disinfectant from the bathroom, sharp and chemical. And that scent anchored the moment more than anything else, because it meant this place existed in the normal world. Hey, I called, voice low, and the human figure flinched like they had not heard a voice in a while. The figure turned their head toward my car, and the overhead lamp caught their face enough to show pale skin and wide eyes, and a fresh smear of blood at the corner of their mouth that could have come from biting a lip. No gore, just a sign of pressure. Do not come closer, the dispatcher voice said over the radio, which I had muted. The radio was not muted anymore. The figure took 2 steps anyway, and my gut clenched, because every instruction in the car had been designed to isolate me. A hand slapped my hood from above, hard enough to shake the windshield, and the human figure froze, eyes locked on something they could not see. My breath caught. The figure whispered, "Is it still there?" That line did not count as banter. That line forced the truth into the open. My hand hovered over the door handle, and my own rule broke through the others, the one I learned from years of night driving for strangers. Do not leave someone alone on a dark lot when something is already wrong. I popped the passenger door lock with my thumb just once, and the car clicked like it had been waiting for permission. The scanner screamed a warning tone, high and urgent. A quoted line flashed, and the letters jittered for a second, like the device struggled to decide what it wanted me to do. If you unlock a door, do not look up. My eyes flicked up anyway, because the body reacts faster than a brain can obey. The overhead light above my parking spot buzzed, then went completely quiet. Not off, just silent. The lamp still glowed, but the familiar electrical hum vanished, and the absence made the hair on my arms lift. The human figure grabbed the passenger door and yanked it open, and the cold air rushed in full, and with it came a sour smell, like wet wool left in a trunk too long. The figure threw themselves into the seat, slammed the door, and shouted, "Drive!" I did not need permission. gas pedal went down, tires squealed, and the car lurched out of the spot. The weight on the hood shifted, and the suspension groaned like the front end took a new load. The figure in my passenger seat held their ribs and stared straight ahead, not at me, not at the dash camera screen, like they had already learned what looking costs. "Why did you stop?" the figure said, voice flat with shock. Shame flashed hot in my chest because the honest answer was not noble. The honest answer included my earlier lie to dispatch that my route was clear. The honest answer included the metrics system that flags a missed scan as a compliance exception and pushes it into a review queue that follows drivers for months. "I saw your van," I said, and I let that be the answer because it was the part I could live with. The scanner display flickered. The after-hours dispatch pop-up vanished. A new message appeared, and the subject line read, "Compliance Coaching. Revision tag E7 again, like a signature." A quoted instruction sat beneath it. "Do not transport another driver." The car radio crackled, and my own voice came through again, delayed, softer now, saying, "Do not transport another driver." The passenger flinched. "That was you," the passenger said. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. The passenger stared at the dash camera screen, and the first real fear line hit my gut because it carried a second problem. The camera is not recording. Mine did that too. The dash camera light blinked once. The timestamp still did not move. I reached up and yanked the camera mount, not off the windshield, just enough to feel the adhesive tug, and the orange E7 sticker peeled a little more, sticky residue stringing like spider web. A small lie slipped out of me, because lying is a reflex for survival when a system watches. "It is recording," I said, and the shame of saying it made my throat burn. The passenger shook their head. "My clip looped," the passenger said, and the passenger swallowed hard before adding, "Then the loop changed." That line landed like a reward and a warning. New information meant I was not crazy, and it meant something had a pattern. The road out of the rest stop turned back onto the highway, and the overhead lamps faded behind us, and the cabin filled with the normal sound of tires again, except the hum of the passenger side vent stayed absent, like the car had chosen to remove one more familiar layer. A smell rose from the dashboard, faint and burnt, like overheated plastic, and I realized the scanner was warm under my hand, even though it had been sitting idle. "Maybe this is a test," the passenger said, and that counter theory sounded rational enough to cling to. A company with cameras and compliance teams could stage a scare to enforce safety. A county could run an operation. Somebody could be messing with drivers who stop. The other theory sat behind my ribs like a stone. The thing on my hood had moved with the car like it belonged there. I chose the human explanation because humans are easier to blame. My fingers hit the scanner menu and pulled up message history, because evidence matters more than fear in a termination hearing. The last pop-up message thread was gone, not deleted. Gone like it never existed. A new thread sat there instead, a duplicate of my own route notes, but with one line I never typed. It read in plain text without quotes, "Stop at the next light." My stomach turned. My thumb hovered over the send button to reply to dispatch, and I pulled away because replying felt like agreeing. The radio clicked, and the dispatcher spoke in a tone that tried to sound like a person with coffee and boredom. "Pull over at the next light," the dispatcher said. The passenger gripped the dashboard with white knuckles and whispered, "Do not." That was the second dialogue line that forced a choice. The scanner added the quoted compliance line again. "If you are instructed to pull over, comply." A trap rule does not need to hide. A trap rule just needs authority. My stress reflex made my hand tap the door latch twice, check the lock, then check it again, because controlling a latch feels like controlling a world. The passenger watched me do it, eyes wide, and said, "I did that too." My catchphrase wanted to come out again, but I bit it back because repetition can turn into superstition. Headlights found an intersection ahead, a small set of blinking yellow lights suspended over a crossroad that disappeared into darkness on both sides. No police, no tow truck, no staff, just light. My foot stayed on the gas. The hood weight shifted. A long scrape ran from the hood toward the windshield, slow and deliberate, like fingernails drawing a line. The passenger hissed a breath, and I felt my own lungs seize because the scrape made a new sound at the end, not metal on metal. A wet, rubbery tap. One tap, then another. Two-step rhythm. The sound did not belong to a person climbing a hood, and it did not belong to wind, and it made my skin tighten because it was a signal meant for ears, not eyes. I kept speed. The lights passed overhead, and the car stayed straight. And the crossroad fell behind us without a single brake flash. The radio did not like that. Static burst, then a clear voice, mine again, whispering, "Stop! Stop!" The passenger slapped the radio power button and the display went dark and the cabin filled with the raw sound of the road. No voice, no static, no hum from the vent. Silence sat in the gaps between tire noises, and it forced the mind to notice the smallest things, like the passenger's shallow breathing and the way the seatbelt retractor clicked when they shifted. The passenger said, "It wants the stop." I did not want to agree, so I did what competent people do when fear wants a story. I tested. A grocery sack sat on my floorboard, crumpled from earlier, and I grabbed it and tossed it onto the passenger seat, right where the dash camera view could catch it. If the camera showed something on the passenger side that did not exist, then my denial would be less valuable than evidence. The dash camera screen stayed on live view, and the corner timestamp stayed frozen. But the image shifted as the bag landed. In the live feed, something else landed too. A dark shape, thin and folded, settling into the passenger seat behind the bag, like a shadow wearing weight. The passenger looked at the screen and made a small choking sound. The passenger seat beside them was empty. The screen showed it occupied. The bag sat in two places at once, and my brain tried to split reality into safe halves. The passenger whispered, "That is where it sits." My hands shook so hard I almost drifted into the rumble strip, and the thought that followed was pure duty. Somebody else would stop. Somebody else would pull over at the next light. Somebody else would answer the radio. When their own voice called their name, I had to get proof to the right place, and the right place in my world meant my supervisor, the person with access to the compliance queue and the power to flag a hazard as real. The supervisor answered on the second ring, voice sharp with fatigue. "What now?" the supervisor said. The line sounded normal, and relief hit so hard my eyes stung. "I have another driver with me," I said, and my voice cracked on the confession. Silence. Then the supervisor said, "Do not say that on a recorded line." That single sentence made a new kind of dread rise, because it proved the system had ears, even when it pretended to be a tool. "The scanner pushed an E7 bulletin," I said, careful now, because I knew what words get flagged. The supervisor exhaled, and I could hear the squeak of a chair through the phone, a mundane detail that grounded the call. "Keep driving," the supervisor said. The supervisor added, lower, "Do not pull over at lights. Go to the clinic, Doc." The passenger mouthed, "Doc," like they were tasting the word for safety. A practical plan formed, and that competence felt like a reward in itself. The clinic dock meant cameras. The clinic dock meant bright lights. The clinic dock meant a badge reader and a door and a place where rules become physical. My scanner pinged, and the compliance thread reappeared on the screen. But the quoted instruction had changed again. If you reach a dock, shut off all interior lights. That was not in the earlier bulletin. My fingers hovered over the cabin light switch, and guilt flashed again because I had turned the interior light on earlier when the passenger got in, and the smell of wet wool had followed. It did not register until later how the screen's rule timing always lagged my choices by one breath, like it was scoring. The passenger said, "My van lights turned on by themselves." My hand went to the cabin light switch anyway, and I flicked it off, then on, then off again, because testing a switch felt like testing agency. The light obeyed. For now. The clinic came into view as a squat building set back from the road, lit enough to make the surrounding trees look flat and harmless. No real town name on signs that mattered. No street numbers. Just a loading dock with a metal roll-up door and a keypad box beside it. My stomach unclenched for the first time in an hour. The hood weight shifted, then settled, and the dragging noise stopped. And that quiet made my skin prickle, because a predator goes quiet when it expects a threshold. I pulled up to the dock and parked close, bumper almost touching the metal barrier, brake engaged, engine running, doors locked. The passenger stared at the dock keypad like it was a priest. The scanner displayed a final quoted instruction under compliance coaching, revision tag E7. If you arrive, verify your identity. The line did not include how. The supervisor's earlier words echoed in my head, not soothing, just firm. My catchphrase tried to surface again, so I swallowed it, and my stress reflex moved to the latch instead. Tap, tap, check, check. The passenger whispered, "Do not open the door." My hand still reached for the scanner because the company required a scan on delivery, and the scanner was the only proof I did not steal a cooler and disappear. Workplace anxiety wears the mask of routine. I hit the scan function. The scanner beeped. The dock keypad box beeped too, which made no sense because those systems did not talk to each other. The camera above the dock clicked once, a mechanical shutter sound that cut through the air, and the sound carried an old-school physicality that made me think of filing cabinets and paper trails. The dash camera screen flickered. The loop ended. The timestamp advanced by 1 second. Relief hit like a wave, fast and dizzying. The hood weight lifted. Suspension rose. Air moved across the windshield in a way that felt like freedom. The passenger exhaled a long breath and started to cry without sound, shoulders shaking. I wanted to believe the dock cameras had driven it off. That light and record keeping and a good lock were enough. A new message appeared on the scanner. Subject line read, "Safety follow-up." Revision tag, E7. The quoted instruction beneath it looked friendly in a way that made my skin crawl. "Step out so cameras can confirm you." My hand froze. The supervisor had said go to the dock, not step out. The passenger's eyes went wide, and the passenger said, "That is the one. That is the trap." The thing about a trap rule is that it offers relief. Step out. Let the system see. Let authority bless the moment as safe. My lungs tightened, and the thought that followed was ugly and practical again. If I did not step out, the scan might fail, and the delivery would not count, and the company would accuse me of stealing, and the alternator quote would expire, and the car would die anyway. The moral dilemma hit hard because it was not supernatural. It was policy versus a human being in my passenger seat who needed a safe place more than I needed a clean record. Step out and satisfy compliance, possibly inviting the thing into the system. Stay inside and risk the job and the future of the route, but keep the passenger away from whatever waited on thresholds. The passengers' hands trembled and they said, "Please, please do not." My hand went to the door latch and tapped twice. Not to open, just to feel the metal. The scanner beeped again, impatient. The dock keypad box beeped again, as if it agreed. I made the choice that burned. The car stayed locked. I hit the call button and dialed my supervisor again, because responsibility means dragging someone else into danger when they are the only one with leverage. The line rang once. Then my own voice answered, cheerful. "Step out so cameras can confirm you." The passenger made a strangled noise. My stomach flipped and my skin went cold, because the system had not just stolen a rule, it had stolen my authority. I hung up, fingers shaking. The dash camera screen showed the dock area in grainy night vision. In that view, my hood just reflected over headlight, clean now. A dark shape stood on the dock behind my car, tall and too still, close enough that the camera should have caught detail. The screen refused. The auto exposure flared, bleaching the figure into a blank cutout while the rest of the scene stayed normal, and that too specific failure made my head pound because cameras do not choose what to ignore unless something tells them. The passenger leaned forward and stared at the screen, and their whisper came out broken. It learned the cameras. A hard click sounded at the passenger door. The lock switch moved down by itself. The passenger grabbed it and shoved it back up, and it slid down again with a soft mechanical certainty. Tactile panic surged, and my hand slammed onto the lock switch and held it. Thumb pressing so hard it hurt, like force could override a motor. The scanner displayed one more quoted line, faint like it came from a different printer. "If the locks cycle, do not fight them." I fought them anyway. Duty does that. The passenger's breath came in short bursts, and their shame line landed like a stone. I stepped out. That confession forced action. My eyes snapped to the dock keypad box, and I remembered the earlier E7 sticker on my dash camera mount, and the peeled corner, and the way the first bulletin and the second bulletin had matched that code. The code was not random. The code was a label. I grabbed the dash camera mount with my free hand and ripped it off the windshield in one hard motion. Adhesive tore with a ripping sound that made my teeth ache. The camera dangled by its cable. The orange sticker with E7 peeled completely and stuck to my palm. My skin crawled. The passenger stared at my hand, and the passenger said, "It wants that too." The dock keypad box beeped again. The roll-up door shuddered, then lifted a few inches, then stopped. A sliver of light spilled out, warm and yellow, and the smell of disinfectant and stale coffee drifted through the gap. And that human smell made my throat tighten with hope. Hope can be a weapon. The scanner flashed a new message, and the subject line read, "Access confirmation. Revision tag E7. The quoted instruction beneath it was short and clean. "If the door opens, go inside." The passenger shook their head, eyes wild. "That door is not opening for us," the passenger said. My brain tried to build a plan with the tools it had: light, cameras, a dock door, a scanner, a passenger who needed safety, a thing outside that wanted compliance. A third possibility took shape, sharp and ugly. The company knew. Not in a conspiracy sense, not in a men-in-suits sense, but in the way institutions know patterns and choose not to name them because naming costs money. A7 looked like a revision tag. E7 looked like an incident category. E7 looked like a warning the system had learned to route. My hand, still holding the sticky orange sticker, reached into the glove compartment because muscle memory wanted something solid to grip. Fingers found paper, a folded memo, old and soft at the edges, like it had been handled too often. No official header printed as a field label, just a line at the top in plain type. Safety bulletin, after hours dispatch. Coffee ring stained the lower corner. The revision mark sat near the bottom. E7. The paper had a tear across one sentence, and the torn edge made part of a word disappear, which meant the rule was damaged before I ever touched it. The memo contained 2 quoted lines. The first read, "If you see it, do not verify." The second line read, "If it speaks with your voice, stay moving." My chest squeezed so hard it hurt. The earlier scanner message had demanded identity verification. This older memo forbade it. The damaged paper proved something I did not want to know. The trap rule had been written down before, then replaced with a safer instruction, then reintroduced by the system when it needed obedience. The passenger stared at the memo, and the passenger's hands shook so hard they had to press palms to thighs. "Where did you get that?" the passenger whispered. "My glove box," I said, and my voice broke because admitting it meant admitting my own flaw. Denial. I had been carrying a warning and still trusted the pop-up on a screen. The dock door lifted another inch. A hand slid into the gap from inside, human-shaped. Fingers curled upward as if someone was trying to hold the door open. Relief hit again, sharp and sweet. Then the hand turned, palm toward the gap, and the dash camera screen, dangling now, caught the image at an angle. The hand had too many fingers. Not gore, not blood, just a count that made my stomach drop. Because the mind can hold numbers even when it cannot hold monsters. The passenger choked back a sob. My own breath turned ragged. The scanner beeped and displayed the trap rule again. Still friendly, still authoritative. "Step out so cameras can confirm you." The figure outside the car on the dash camera screen stayed blanked by exposure, like the lens refused to cooperate. The lock switch under my thumb cycled down again, and my grip slipped, because sweat made everything slick. Resource loss hit in a new category: safe space. The car was no longer a controlled box. I had to act before the system decided for me. The supervisor line rang in my head, the real one from earlier, the one that sounded tired and human. "Go to the dock." I could not reach the supervisor now without giving the system another voice sample. The passenger needed a safe interior space. The clinic interior might not be safe. The car might stop being safe any second. A plan formed that felt reckless and responsible at the same time. The dock door had an emergency release chain inside the building, the kind required by code. I had seen it in daylight deliveries. If that chain got pulled, the door would slam down. A containment action. It would trap whoever was inside the gap, human or not. It would also trap the passenger outside safety if I did not move fast. My hand hit the cabin light switch and flicked it off again, not for the rule, but to remove the camera's ability to see my face through the glass. The passenger caught on and pulled their hood up, covering hair, hiding identity, because survival teaches fast. My fingers found the steering wheel, and my foot feathered the brake, and I eased the car forward 2 feet, then stopped. The dock door gap lined up with my passenger door. The passenger stared at me. "What are you doing?" the passenger said. "I am not verifying," I said. And the line came out steady because sometimes the body decides to stop shaking when it commits. I hit the passenger lock switch. It clicked up. For one blessed second, it stayed. "Run," I said. The passenger shoved the door open and bolted into the gap beneath the roll-up door. Shoulder scraping metal, and the smell of disinfectant hit stronger, warm and sharp. A hand from inside grabbed the passenger's jacket and yanked. Human hand this time, 5 fingers, urgent grip. The passenger disappeared inside. The dock door shuddered. The chain inside clanked. Metal started to drop. A sharp scraping came from my hood as weight shifted again, and the dash camera screen, dangling, caught a still-frame moment in the reflection of the dock door. The blank exposure cutout resolved for half a second into a shape that was not a person. Limbs folded backward, a head held too low. A mouth line opened across a pale surface, and the mouth did not move like muscle, it moved like a door hinge. Then the exposure flared again and erased it. The dock door slammed down with a crash that shook the lot. Silence hit hard right after, not calm, but the kind that follows a circuit breaker trip. Overhead, lamps still glowed, but the hum stayed gone. Even the engine noise sounded muffled, like the air thickened. My hands shook so hard they slipped off the wheel, and my stress reflex went to the latch again. Tap, tap, check, check. The passenger was inside. Adult life saved, resource paid. What did it cost? The scanner screen went black. Then it restarted on its own and displayed a single line of text. No quote marks this time, no friendly tone, just plain letters that looked like a verdict. Driver non-compliant. My throat tightened. Non-compliant meant a review. Non-compliant meant termination. Non-compliant meant my alternator quote would expire, and my car would die, and my life would narrow. My catchphrase rose up, and I let it out. Quiet. Not my favorite. A notification sound hit the scanner, and a new message loaded. Subject line read, Access Revocation Revision Tag E7. The quoted instruction beneath it was short and final. Do not attempt re-entry. The clinic side door beside the dock beeped twice, and the keypad light turned red. Access was gone. The passenger was inside without me. My chest seized because pro-social choices can still backfire. I could drive away and leave the passenger locked in with whatever had been inside pulling that chain. I could stay and try to regain access, which would mean verifying identity, which the older memo forbade. Policy versus human safety again, only sharper. The passenger thumped on the door from inside once, twice, then shouted through metal, "It is in here!" That line forced action. A fire alarm pull station sat by the door, the simple red box with a clear cover, the kind every workplace employee is told never to touch unless flames show. Touching it would trigger an incident. Touching it would trigger cameras. Touching it would trigger a compliance investigation. Touching it would also unlock doors for evacuation. I had never pulled one in my life. My hand hovered and shame hit again because the system had trained me to fear paperwork more than danger. I yanked the cover and pulled the handle. Alarm did not scream. No blare. No strobe. A soft chime sounded instead, polite and wrong. Like the building wanted to keep the disturbance civilized. The overhead lamps flickered once, and the hum returned for half a second, then cut again. The door clicked, unlocked. My heart hammered. The scanner stayed dark. The dash camera dangling displayed live view again, and the timestamp advanced now, steady like everything was normal. I shoved the door open and stepped into the clinic corridor. Disinfectant smell hit hard, mixed with something else, a sweet rot like flowers left in water too long, and that smell told me the inside did not match the outside. Hallway lights glowed, but the familiar buzz stayed absent. Footsteps sounded too loud, my own shoes slapping tile. The corridor stretched longer than the building should allow, and my eyes caught a micro detail that made my stomach drop. A safety poster on the wall had been replaced with a blank white sheet, stapled at the corners like someone removed words. No readable text, just absence. The passenger stood near the dock office, hands shaking, eyes wide, pointing toward a security monitor mounted on the wall. The monitor showed the loading dock area from above. It also showed my car. A dark shape crouched on the hood again, even though the hood had felt empty when I stepped out. The shape turned its head toward the camera, and the exposure did the same flare trick, bleaching it into a blank silhouette. The passenger whispered. It followed anyway. A door behind us clicked. My stress reflex made my hand tap the latch of the office door twice without thinking, and the metal under my fingers felt warm, like a hand had just been there. The passenger grabbed my sleeve. We need to leave, the passenger said. Leaving meant going back through the side door, out into the lot, into the car that might no longer obey locks. Leaving meant abandoning the clinic interior that might hold the thing now. I looked at the memo still crumpled in my fist. If you see it, do not verify. A realization landed with a clean, sick clarity. Verification was not only face to camera. Verification was any moment I let the system match me to a rule. Scanning a delivery, answering a call, replying to a message, pulling a fire alarm with my badge still active. I had been verifying all night. The supervisor's voice came from the corridor, not from a phone. The voice was calm and tired and wrong. Step out so cameras can confirm you, the voice said. The passenger flinched. The security monitor flickered, and for one frame, the shape on my hood turned toward the clinic door and lifted an arm. The arm bent backward at the elbow. The hand pressed flat against nothing. The gesture looked like a salute and a warning. The passenger said, "That is it, learning." My phone buzzed in my pocket again, and this time the screen lit up with a missed call notification that made my blood go cold. Caller name displayed as my own number. No joke, no prank. Just the system feeding itself. My hand shook and guilt hit hard because I had brought the passenger here. I had also saved them. Meta-law exchange. Gain and loss braided. A wall-mounted printer in the dock office coughed once and spat out a single sheet of paper. No one touched it. Paper slid into the tray anyway, warm and fresh, like the building wanted to give me something. The sheet held one line, centered in plain type. E7. Under it, in quoted text, "If you see that symbol again, keep moving." The line was the kind of disguised instruction that sounds like a warning and a recruitment pitch at once. I grabbed the paper and felt heat in the fibers like it had just been pressed. The passenger stared at it and whispered, "That symbol was on my van." My throat tightened. Shared universe hint. Not just my route. Not just Dover, a category, a system. The passenger looked at me and asked the question that mattered more than monsters. "Are you going to report this?" Reporting meant the company. Reporting meant the compliance queue. Reporting meant the message thread that vanished when I tried to find it. Reporting also meant other drivers might not stop on dark shoulders and die for a rule they trusted. The responsible repair became obvious, and it terrified me more than the thing on the hood. I had to transmit a warning outside the system that fed it. The clinic had an emergency radio at the front desk for weather and county alerts, the kind nobody used except drills. Front desk sat down the corridor, past doors that all looked identical in this light. The corridor length felt wrong again, and my skin crawled because geometry can be a trap too, but I had to move. The passenger stayed close behind me, and my stress reflex tapped each door latch we passed, just once, like counting, like proof. A faint scribble sat on the wall near the front desk, marker on paint, half cleaned, the kind of graffiti janitors miss. It read E7, not a code now, a signature. The radio at the desk sat in a cradle, unplugged. Cord dangled. A sticky note lay on top, handwritten in block letters smeared where a finger dragged ink. The note held 2 quoted lines. The first read, "If you hear your voice, do not answer." The second line had a missing word where the smear turned letters into mud. "If you must warn others, use the _____ channel." My eyes caught the missing word, and the planted detail from earlier snapped into place. That same smear pattern, that same missing corner. I had seen it at the rest stop bathroom, a note taped above the sink with a corner torn away, and I had ignored it because it felt like superstition. I did not notice it then, but the torn edge had left a shape like the corner of my orange E7 sticker. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the peeled orange sticker from the dash camera mount. Sticky residue clung to my fingers. I pressed the sticker corner against the smeared note, not to cover anything, just to align shapes. The torn edge matched. Perfect. The missing word did not vanish. It appeared. Ink transfer, faint, like carbon paper. The word became legible enough to read without certainty, and certainty was not required for action. The word was county. Use the county channel. My hands shook. The radio was unplugged. Cord hung free. Fridge horror does not always wait for the end. I grabbed the cord and shoved it into the wall outlet under the desk. The plug did not fit. The outlet had no holes, just a flat plastic plate painted to look like one. The radio had never been meant to transmit. The warning system inside the building was a stage prop. My lungs seized, and my shame line hit like a knife because it landed on my human flaw. Denial. I had trusted the systems because trusting saved energy. I had followed rules because rules made the world feel stable. The thing outside loved stability. The passenger whispered, "Then how do we warn them?" A landline phone sat on the desk. Old school, handset heavy, no screen. I lifted it, no dial tone, just silence. Then, from somewhere inside the receiver, a soft 2-step tap sounded. The same rhythm from my hood earlier, only closer now, like it was tapping from inside my ear. I slammed the handset down. Panic loop hit fast. Close it, close it, close it now. The clinic front doors stood 10 feet away, glass panels showing the dock lights outside. My car sat in view. The hood showed the dark, crouched shape again, blanked by exposure, but present. The passenger grabbed my arm and said, "We can run to my van." Running did not solve anything. The system would follow. The best warning I could transmit was evidence, physical, not digital, something that could not vanish from a message thread. The printer paper in my hand held E7 and the warning quote. The memo in my pocket held the older rule. My dash camera still hung in the car, adhesive torn, recording loops or lies. The rest stop note existed on a bathroom wall, a network of unofficial warnings, a community truth built under institutional denial. I made a decision that felt like lighting a match in a dry room. We drove back to the rest stop. No scan, no compliance, no verifying. The passenger watched the road with a hollow stare, and my hands stayed tight on the wheel, and my catchphrase came out soft, steadying. Not my favorite. The hood weight stayed absent, but the dash camera light blinked in that wrong rhythm anyway, like a metronome counting mistakes. At the rest stop, I parked under the harsh lamps again and left the engine running. We went inside together because isolation had been the first trap. Bathrooms smelled of disinfectant and cheap soap. The handwritten note above the sink was still there, corner torn, ink smudged, and the quoted line showed clear enough now to make my skin prickle. If you stop, do not verify. Under it, Another quoted line, smaller. If you must warn, leave proof. I pulled the fresh printed E7 sheet from the clinic and taped it beside the note. I taped the older memo below it. No headers, no official framing. Just evidence and a rule for the next tired driver. My pen scratched a final line on the bottom of the paper. Not poetic, just a confession that could survive a compliance audit. Keep driving. Do not answer the radio. Do not verify. The passenger stood behind me, breathing steadier now. A truck pulled into the lot outside, headlights sweeping the bathroom window for a second. The light made the mirror over the sink flare, and in that flare, for one heartbeat, the reflection showed a dark shape crouched on the hood of the arriving truck. Then the truck moved forward into a space, and the reflection showed nothing but glass and white tile. The passenger grabbed my sleeve. I swallowed and forced my voice to stay calm because panic spreads faster than monsters. "We're going to tell the driver to keep moving," I said, and my throat tightened as responsibility cemented. We stepped out of the bathroom. The rest stop door opened with a squeak, and cold air slid in, and the hum of the vending machine hit my ears like a lifeline. The arriving driver stepped out of their cab, adult, tired, rubbing eyes. My mouth opened, and the first word that rose was the echo phrase the dispatcher voice had used earlier, the one that had haunted the whole night. "Just keep moving," I said. The driver blinked, confused. The passenger pointed at the bathroom, at the taped papers, at the warning that did not rely on screens. The driver glanced once, then twice, then their shoulders tightened. They did not laugh. They did not argue. They climbed back into their cab and pulled away without a word. That small act felt like the only win the night would allow. Back in my car, my phone buzzed again. A new notification. A folder had been created in my cloud account, one I never made. The folder name was 2 characters. E7. My stomach clenched, and I felt the last shred of comfort slip away because the system had not been blocked. It had been redirected. I keep asking myself why the dash camera timestamp froze before the first stop, because the truth hit me at sunrise. When I held the camera in my hand and saw the memory card still factory sealed.